Okay, Doc.
I'll read this one because of the numbers.
Yes.
Hi, Dave. I've been listening to many of your YouTube videos with excitement. It's great to hear someone with experience talk frankly about men's health and someone who knows how not feeling right is an individual observation, sometimes not shown in the large lab ranges of blood tests. I've been measuring my testosterone for the last 5 years. I felt my strength and stamina falling shortly after turning 40 and having a vasectomy. I'm now 48. My levels have been reasonably consistent at an average of 460 nanograms per deciliter, but after having prostatitis last Christmas, I have felt more depressed, have zero libido, and now failing erections. I fall asleep in the middle of the day and my joints and muscles ache constantly. I still go to the gym, but my daily routine reduced to 3 weekly, and now I can just about manage 2, and I have to recover for the rest of the week. My free T has never been above 0.3 nanomoles per liter since Christmas, and always low range before. In the UK, unless you get total testosterone of less than 235, you don't even stand a chance of replacement therapy. So as my levels are always around 460, despite changes in diet, supplements, etc., I'm refused any help. I feel my low free T is to blame, but I also have a prolactin issue. A year ago, I had no libido and levels of 500. Now they are 8. It's swinging around, not knowing what to do. I'm hoping this would stabilize when T is optimal. My estradiol has been 88 this year, which again, GPs in UK say is fine. You say 15 to 20, which is way lower. I'm going private for my TRT and wanted to know your suggested ranges for me to achieve and whether I should use tests with Arimidex and or with HCG as well. I have an untreated hydrocele on one testicle and wondered if this may affect production. My other testicle is late developing at puberty and about half the size of the right. Despite this, I had a very active sex life and built a great physique in my youth. Any advice welcome. Please keep up the videos, and I hope more men take control and fix themselves, as the UK health service is so financially stretched they will never get the help they need. Regards, Peter Kenilworth, UK. Well, working from the back up, I mean, I've heard that about the UK system. It's a great, system for the general public, as any, what do they call it, medicine where everyone gets helped at the cost of the government, which is really the people. But anyway, it's not private. I hear there's some good and bad, but hydrocele can be an issue, but most often is not an issue when it comes to producing testosterone. The very fact that this gentleman had a very active sex life and built a great physique in his youth means that the current hydrocele at age 48 is probably not the problem. Bottom line is, at 48, that's probably the problem. 48, again, I always joke, life expectancy 300 years ago was roughly 28 years. And if you believe in evolution and, the purpose of it is to procreate, at 48, the testicles saying, why are you guys bothering us? We're supposed to be long gone. So I don't think that's highly unlikely to be the problem, a hydrocele, for which he's complaining about anyway. When I get these numbers, 88, different countries have different measurements. So I don't know if that's picograms per milliliter, or if it's nanomoles per liter. I mean, it could be anything, but certainly if we're comparing apples and apples, 88 picograms per milliliter is, way too high. I don't care what scale you're looking at, that's crazy high. And it goes back to the whole thing about normal versus not. The reference intervals being normal. Who cares about normal? That just tells me what? That, I always joke, it's normal to get sick and die one day, so who cares about normal? At some point, 0 is going to be normal and you'll be dead or really, really old. So, and that's in reference to your testosterone levels. So, most of the labs I see in the United States, 39 or less is considered normal for estradiol. And I would say that 30 is, or certainly 35 anyway, is double what optimum is in my book anyway. So 88, that's surprisingly high. if that's indeed picograms per milliliter. And you're probably holding water if it's that high. You're probably holding more fat than you should. You're probably a little moody and irascible, and you're most likely, definitely, if you really, contributing to prostate cancer, because we know now that estrogen plays a big role in activating the genes which all men carry for prostate cancer. So, yeah, no bueno. The prolactin being high, that can be an issue. Elevated prolactin can affect dopamine, testosterone, so I would want to bring that under control too. I see elevated prolactin, mildly elevated every once in a while. The levels might be 2 or 3 points above the norm, but then we do a follow-up and it's back to what it should be. So again, is this the heart of your problem? I already said no. It's probably just age. So bottom line is, with a testosterone of 235, and I'm assuming that's nanograms per deciliter, yeah, you're definitely a candidate, particularly with, more importantly, the depression, the lack of libido, the erectile dysfunction, the lack of energy, the joint muscle aches. I mean, all these fall into the classic symptoms and signs of testosterone.
But he's not in the 200 though. He says he's in the 400, and that's what it is. If you're not in the 200, they won't treat him.
Oh, beg your pardon.
Right.
Well, 460 is pretty low too. And again, this is a total.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, you don't treat numbers, man. You treat people.
Yeah.
And the guru in all this, Abraham Morgenthaler, is the one who thankfully chaired an international consensus, and I post this on my website. There, I got the bullet points, but you can see all of the detail of the conference that they held and what they published elsewhere. I mean, it's out there, but essentially, he's finally said, look, the numbers don't really give us much of a hint of anything. You treat the symptoms. And certainly, the horse rather than the zebra in this gentleman's case, since he's 48, would be low testosterone causing all this. You still want to, do the lab work, though. I'm not saying ignore it, to confirm the most important part, which is, no patient that I know of has ever come to me and said, Rand, I need help. I did my labs and I see that my numbers are out of whack. My testosterone's really low. Let's fix it. They come in. First of all, they get the labs first, or they come in and say, I feel like crap.
Yeah.
I have low energy, or decreased energy, decreased libido, decreased sense of well-being. I can't control my body composition, et cetera, et cetera. What could it be? And then we verify with the numbers. So, you get my point. But Abraham Morgenthaler, again, chaired this international consensus which published this. So it's not just the UK, it's not just America or whatever. Again, it's an international consensus that says, hey, let's not draw the line at a particular mark. And it used to be 450 nanograms per deciliter by Morgenthaler originally, when we were first starting to understand all this stuff. And and again, we should really look at free testosterone anyway, because that's where the rubber meets the pavement.
Right.
Your total, I use the example of if my Uncle Jake, and I don't have one, but certainly when I finish the story, you'll understand why I would call him Uncle Jake. If he left me $1 million over there at the Wells Fargo, but stipulated that it's all yours, but you can only pull out $50 a day, you and I know that ain't much, especially here on the West Side. That might buy lunch. And it, he jaked us, as we would say. It's like, thanks for nothing, Uncle Jake. So you can have a free tea that is relatively high. This is not relatively high, but it might meet some mark in the UK. And your free T is really, really low. So total T does not necessarily translate. On average, as an absolute number in these states with the measurements that we use, it's roughly 2%. I don't know the measurements they use for free T over there, but by the opposite, I had a gentleman in the office today. He had a 336 total T, nanograms per deciliter, and his free T was 15 point something. That's phenomenal. To get that much free T out of your total T.
What determines that?
Pardon?
What determines the free T in someone's,
Well, free T is a function of the amount of testosterone you have floating around and how much of it is bound up by something called sex hormone binding globulin.
Okay.
Or how little of it, I guess, is bound up by sex hormone binding globulin. There are ways to lower that. A small dose of an anabolic steroid, such a small dose that it wouldn't even affect you the way it's supposed to. Its indication, like, 5 milligrams of Anavar, for example, or 5 milligrams of Winstrol, or even something Danazol, 25 milligrams of Danazol, which is, I guess, technically classified as an anabolic steroid, but has really very little anabolic benefit. It would lower your SHBG very effectively, and therefore raise your free T, and you would get something out of that.
I see.
Or nettle root, high protein diet. Those are some of the ways that we can lower SHBG that we know of.
Nice.
The prostatitis, it's actually a lot more common in this country, so I would assume in England just as well. After about age, I believe it's 32 or 35, to have prostatitis and it go undiagnosed. It's in an area that's hard to evaluate. It's actually less likely to be evaluated still for some reason, but it's actually very easy. It's just an expense. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. They can put you in feet first in an MRI and get a good picture and see an enlarged prostate, and just clinically based upon the fact that you're urinating way too frequently. I don't see it resulting in failed erections, but anyway, certainly you can biopsy and see the bacteria. But again, we treat it without a biopsy, hopefully, just presumptively. And unfortunately, it comes back very frequently, and it's very hard to treat. It takes a minimum of 6 weeks of a very broad spectrum antibiotic. But it's treatable, and I would definitely treat it, because inflammation from prostatitis would be linked pretty significantly to the development eventually of prostate cancer. So don't shoot the messenger, but to feel better and get rid of the symptoms from enlarged prostate, an infected prostate, and avoid cancer down the road, I would definitely treat that. Let's see. I'm sorry. I worked my way from the bottom up. Did I answer all the questions?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah. So I would definitely pursue the TRT.
Yeah.
I mean, he mentioned something about it going from 500 to 8. There must be a misprint there, because certainly that would fulfill the less than 235 requirements in the UK. So I guess I don't follow that one. And then, for the prolactin, if it is continually an issue in this country anyway, it's cabergoline is usually the treatment of choice to bring the levels down. It's a twice a week medication typically, and it has some other nice benefits that go with it, such as shortening the refractory period between ejaculations, which is why a lot of people use it for other than treating, elevated prolactin. But that's it. I think we got all those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doc.